Okay, so throughout this whole course, we have discussed many functions inside of Excel, such as the sum function, average, if, VLOOKUP, and so on. Well, we can actually use those functions inside of VBA. And this can actually save you a lot of time because you don't have to manually write your own functions. For example, within the WS function worksheet, we have an identical setup from earlier in the course when we were working with the VLOOKUP function. So if I put an ID number in cell G2, let's say 112, the VLOOKUP function should return the name associated to this ID number. So if we click enter, the VLOOKUP function returned Ryan, because over here in our list, Ryan has an ID number of 112. So our goal for this video is to reproduce this VLOOKUP function, but inside of VBA. So within our writing VBA code module, let's add a new sub procedure. I'm going to come down to the bottom here, add some space, and for this sub, I'm going to call it find name. And what we are trying to do is have our code look up the ID number that's in cell G2 and then return the name associated to that ID number in a message box. So the first thing that we need to do is declare our variable. So we can type in dim. I'm going to name the variable fName, and we can either declare it as a string or a variant, because the value that we are trying to return is the name within the name column. So either variable type will work. Now we need to make our variable equal something. So we can type in fName equals, and this is where we will insert the VLOOKUP function inside of VBA. And to do that, we can type in application dot worksheet function dot, and then we can type in the function that we want to insert, which is VLOOKUP. Now from here, it's pretty straightforward, because the arguments required for this function to work is the exact same if you were just using the VLOOKUP function within your spreadsheet. So we can put open parentheses, and the first argument is the lookup value. And our lookup value is our ID number in cell G2. So we can type in range G2. And that's our first argument. And our next argument is our table array. So we need to specify the range of cells that include our table. So we can type in range, and our table goes from A1 all the way to D14, which is this range of cells on our worksheet, A1 to D14. And for our last argument, we need to specify the column where our value that we want to return is located. So we are trying to return the name, which is in column 2. And since we are trying to find an exact match, for our last argument, we can put comma 0, close parentheses. Now we have successfully inserted the VLOOKUP function inside of VBA. We have the lookup value, our table array, the column number which our value that we want to return is in, and then the exact match. So now let's try to display a message box saying what ID number that we search for and the name that it returns. So we can type in message box, open quotes, and we can put ID number space close quotes, and then combine it with the ID number that we searched, which is in cell G2. So we can put the ampersand sign and then type in range G2. And then from here, let's display the name of the ID number in a new line inside the message box. So to add a new line within the message box, we can type in &, VB new line. And once we run this sub, you will have a better idea what this expression VB new line does inside the message box. And lastly, we need to put the ID number that the VLOOKUP function returns. So once again, we can type in the &, and for our ID number, we can just type in our variable, which is fname, because fname equals this VLOOKUP function. And that's it. So if we run this sub, we currently have the ID number 112 inside of G2. And if we click play, our message box displays the ID number that we searched for was 112, and the name associated to that number is Ryan. Let's do another one. So if we change this ID number to 119, our VLOOKUP function returned Jack inside the worksheet. And if we run our sub, once again, it showed us the ID number that we searched for was 119, and the name associated to that number is Jack. So that's how you can use worksheet functions inside of VBA. All you need to do is type in application.worksheetfunction and then insert the function that you want. And that function will require the same arguments as it would if you were just using that function inside the Excel workbook. And the advantages of using worksheet functions inside of VBA is that you can change these function arguments to be more dynamic by using variables. So if you wanted, you can change these arguments using variables based on a value that a user puts in an input box, or based off an if statement that you use in your code. Meaning that if this condition is true, use this variable for this argument, but if it's false, use this other variable for one of the arguments. So hopefully you can see, utilizing VBA, you are able to create a lot more dynamic functionality inside of your spreadsheets.